Welcome back to another episode of AskBrien.com. That's AskBrien, B-R-I-E-N. So what an honor to be back with you here on our flagship station, KHTS 1220 AM, one of the greatest stations in the country and the number one station in California. And they've won all kinds of community awards, Mr. Brian Johnson. How are you this morning?
I'm very good.
Not even morning, it's afternoon. How are you?
I'm very good.
So we're live here in Santa Clarita. We're not going to take phone calls today, but we are going to interview you as the founder of AskBrien.com. You also brought your partner with you. You want to introduce her?
She's a co-founder.
You want to speak right into the microphone.
This is a co-founder. Her name is Lindsay Mann.
Hi, Ron. Pleasure to be here.
Nice to meet you, Lindsay. So what a great idea. You know, as a businessman, I've been involved in coaching businesses for the last 20 years. And I wish, well, now I have it, AskBrien.com. I have it. So I can go to AskBrien, B-R-I-E-N.com. And when I get to the site, what's going to happen? What is the site going to do for me as a business person?
Well, there are a number of functions there, but the main function is questions and answers. Everybody has business questions. And when they have business questions, they don't really know where to go. They could call their friend, but if they call their friend, they may not want the friend to know, hey, I've got a personal business issue or I'm trying to start a business. They may not want them to know that. They could call a business coach. Most business coaches, though, starting $500 an hour up to $15,000, cost a lot of money. So that's one issue.
Yeah, you cost a lot of money, I'm sure. So it's a wonderful site to go and get questions asked about business.
Any type of business question that you have, we answer it, and we have people that work with us that will answer those questions. And of course, any person who's a registered member can also answer a question.
All right, so let's get into it. The show is called AskBrien.com. You can go to the website. It's a nice-looking website. So I'm curious, what are the top 3 questions that people ask you? I'm curious because I'm going to take notes. What are they?
Well, that's a very good question, Ron. The first most important, popular one we would have are website questions. So that would be a question of how do I start a website? How do I get a website? What do I put in a website? How do I hire somebody to design a website?
So like GoDaddy or any of these, and I love GoDaddy, I'm a big customer of theirs, they'll build a website fairly inexpensively. So I guess the old adage, you pay for what you get for. So GoDaddy will build you a basic, maybe 2-3 page site. For some people in some businesses, a 2 or 3 page site is just good enough. It's used as a billboard. If you have a lot of products and you want to make a profit on the internet, you probably have to have a big boy site. You probably have to go. So how do you find that right web builder? How do you do it?
That's a very good question. You want to look at any referrals you can get from any of your friends is always a good issue, but also you want to go in and find out web developers, usually within the United States. You can go outside the country, but when you do go outside the country, you have to deal with foreigners that may have an issue whereby if there's a problem, you may not be able to reach them. There are other issues. When you're dealing with somebody within the United States, there are advantages. It's not the sole advantage, the sole reason why you need to do that, but there are advantages by getting a website designed within the United States from web developers. You want to look for the portfolio of the sites that they have designed. So if you can go to a website and you're thinking about hiring a web developer, one thing you would want to do is look at the portfolio of sites and what type of site you have, what type of site you envision. So that's one very important factor. The other important factor would be your budget, where you're starting out. Is this a brand new site? Are you a business that's been operating for 20, 30 years and you have lots of money to push into the site, or are you just starting out and this is you have a shoestring budget and you don't have a lot of funds? You want to try to look at that. What is your purpose to design a site? What is your goal? So there's a whole bunch of different questions that would be asked once to determine which person would be the best entity to design the site for you.
All right, we'll come back to that because I have like 100 questions on websites. So the number 2 question that you're asked at AskBrien.com, B-R-I-E-N, AskBrien.com.
That would be a financial question, anything involving monies and funds. So monies and funds are obviously the biggest important factor in dealing with any type of a business. If you don't have the money, you will not survive. So obviously, monetary issues are always around, and always the big popular question that people coming to the AskBrien site for. They want to know, how can I collect money? How can I get money to start a site? Where am I going to find the resources to grow my business the way I want to grow it? Then there are people that already have a business, and they're looking for, okay, I've got a business, I've got $500,000 of revenue. Well, that's great, but you may be in a situation where you cannot get funding because you have a cash flow problem. So you may have $50,000 coming in and $55,000 going out. So you may need cash flow. You may have to do things such as factoring. You may have to go out and get a loan. Now, one of the things we found is some of these loan companies that are out there, they can charge anywhere from, the bank loan, which is, maybe 3 or 4% for the best creditor situation, where all the way up to 280% when you're dealing with some of these financial companies.
All right, I'm going to come back to financial because I'm curious what user is, but I'll save that. Third question that's most asked at AskBrien.com is
permits. And when we talk about permits, we're referring to both permits and licenses. So, for instance, when you start a business, you typically need to obtain a business license. That's one of the first things you need to get. That has nothing to do with how you're forming your business. So you may form your business as a corporation, as an LLC, as a partnership, sole proprietorship, or fictitious business name. Those are how you form the entity. But once the entity is formed, you then typically need to obtain a business license based on the city where your business is located or the county where your business is located. So that's the first thing. So people are asking questions about that. They want to know, okay, I've incorporated the business. I went online. I called an attorney. I got my company set up. But now what do I do next? They don't know, and that's where AskBrien can help you out. AskBrien.com, BRIEN.com.
Brian Johnson, our wonderful guest today on KHTS 1220 AM. You're listening here in Southern California. So, pivoting back to the first question that most people ask about building a website. So to me, a website is like the old-fashioned yellow pages. You've got to have it. I mean, my wife tells me all the time, young people like yourself don't even have business cards anymore. So the first thing I want to ask is, text me your website or give me your website. So a website is really very important. But as I said earlier when I was asking the question, there's all kinds of sites. You don't need a 50-page site if you've got a service business. Maybe you need a 50-page site if you've got 100 products or 200 products. Also, selecting the right web builder. Can you negotiate when you're shopping for a web builder? Can you negotiate price?
Anything in this world is negotiable, and you have to understand that. You can also use leverage. What is your business? For instance, if you're starting out and whatever service you're offering, let's say you're offering a dental service, but you just started, you graduated dental school, and now you're trying to figure out how to get started. Well, you can leverage your service. I'll take a free screening, free x-rays, and maybe I can use that as leverage to get a website. So that's one issue that you can go to. But
leverage. I love the word leverage. I understand it, but help our listeners understand when go a little deeper into leverage.
Okay, so leverage. Let's go back to the dental situation. You're a dentist. You graduated dental school. You worked for 2 years. Now you're opening your practice. You have hundreds of thousands of dollars in both student loans and hundreds of thousands of dollars of dental equipment that you're going to have to purchase in order to open your dental practice. So you're trying to look where you can save money. And top of that, you have to worry about how you're going to obtain insurance monies, because it takes 2 to 3 months once you start processing the insurance for the dentist to be able to obtain that. So that's what we're talking about. So if the dentist can save some money by contacting a web designer that, hey, maybe they need dental services, maybe they've got a root canal, maybe they need something, they don't have dental coverage. So you can barter. That's a good way. It's also a leverage play. The other way you can do it is you can put a link maybe on your dental site that talks about the web developer, so when people come to the site down the road, as the site grows, other people can then come back in and say, hey, listen, I need a website and I saw it on dentist David Smith's site. So that's another leverage play.
That's kind of bartering for services, isn't it?
It is not bartering technically because it depends on your relationship. You can sit there and say a root canal, but
So if you're bartering services, there's no taxable income. So I just want to put a note out there that I do love the IRS, and so do you, don't you, Brian Johnson?
well,
You do love the IRS, don't you?
I don't want to say much about the IRS. I pay my taxes. That's all I want to say.
AskBrien.com, BRIEN, AskBrien.com. So I love that. I love the fact that you can use leverage, you can barter your services. I like that. If you're starting off in business, cash flow is always a challenge. So that's one great idea that you shared with me today.
Well, that's what
Do you
the
have
show.
any more great ideas?
That's all the show is about. Our show and our company and AskBrien.com, BRIEN.com. We're here for one goal only, to help you succeed in business. And we want to offer you, that's why we offer free business questions and free business answers. You can ask a question, you'll get an answer. We don't charge.
We're going to take a break here in about 1 minute, but the financial part is, for me, one of the most important questions that I can ask and get our audience involved. Usury rate. Do you know, ask Brian, what the usury rate is? I mean, how do we know as the public if we're being overcharged on a particular loan?
Ron, that was an excellent question. Now let me go over this.
That's 2 excellent questions I've asked today.
You're 2 for 2.
Thank you.
You're batting 1,000.
Thank you.
I don't know if you'll be batting 1,000 at the end of the day, but you're batting 1,000 right now.
Thank you.
Okay, so with interest rates, and it's based on the state law. Now, there are federal laws, but it actually is based on the state law. So in the state of California, you'd be very surprised to realize that the usury rate is only 10% in the state of California. You cannot charge above 10%. However, there are exceptions. There are exceptions to finance lenders. There are exceptions to credit cards. There are exceptions to certain people, but you have to be licensed by the state in order to be able to charge above that 10%. Many people are unaware of this fact, and that's a very important fact. Now, usually, just so everybody understands, that's charging a rate above the maximum rate set by law. The maximum rate set by law is 10%, so if you were charging 10.1% and you did not have a permit, you weren't a finance lender license, you didn't get some type of exclusion from that law, you would be charged usury, and usury can both be a civil and criminal penalty.
I know we don't have time today, but it's such a big challenge for small business and mediums and all size business financing. And so on other shows on Ask Brian, I'm sure you're going to get into the weeds on factoring and the different type of finance companies that are out there. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. His name is Brian Johnson. The site is called AskBrien, BRIEN.com. And after this short break, here in Santa Clarita, we have a very special business. I buy her stuff all the time. It's called Nothing But Bunt. You probably have been over there many times. We'll be right back. We're going to interview her. I have a question that you might have about her business, too. We'll be right back.